Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are here live today with Office Hours with Lisa Wang, joined by Bianca Cabán today. And this is a co-hosted event with Alice, the Intelligent Business Advisor, which is a free platform to help you start and grow your company, and WomanMade, which is a PepsiCo initiative helping female founders grow and scale. So today we've got Lisa Wang, who is the founder and CEO of SheWorx, joined by Bianca Cabán, who is the head of partnerships at Republic and managing director of SheWorx. And today they will be talking all about and answering your questions on equity crowdfunding. So at any point during the session, please feel free to pop in either the chat box or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, any questions you have for Bianca and Lisa. Lisa, would you like to take it away?
Awesome. Welcome everyone to today's live Female Founders Office Hours. I'm Lisa, and I'm so excited to have everyone here today who's on Zoom and who's also on Facebook. And I'm here today with Bianca, who is the head of partnerships at Republic and the newest managing director of SheWorx. And today we will how to fundraise through equity crowdfunding, something that I think is unfamiliar to a lot of people. You may have heard the term before, but not know exactly the technicalities of it. So we're here to break that down today, and we'll do our best to share insights around your questions. So just a quick show of hands, I guess, in the chat room. I would love to just know where people are tuning in from, what city, what's your name. So if you just take a moment to share that in the chat box, that would be great. We've got Adria from Seattle, Washington. Awesome. Got some people from New York. Lamia from New York. Sosi is joining from Colorado. Navit from Krakow, Poland. It's great to always see some international faces who are tuning in here. So excited to see you guys here. And before we get started, I just want to say a quick thank you to PepsiCo and Alice for making these office hours possible. This is going to be a really engaging and informative hour. And as you hear any interesting quotes or valuable nuggets of info, I highly encourage you to write it down and engage with us on social. So Team Alice will be sharing some of the social handles that you can tweet out at or engage on Instagram. And if you want to partake, just type in your questions, whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom, and we will try our best to get to those answers. All right, without further ado, today, Bianca Cabán is the head of partnerships at Republic and managing director of SheWorx, which is now officially owned and powered by Republic. And Republic is a fundraising platform for startups and blockchain projects. In terms of Bianca's background, before Republic and SheWorx, she worked on Wall Street. So that includes Credit Suisse, BlackRock, Atlas Merchant Capital, where she conducted business in Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, so all over the world. And she also established a consultancy where she worked with clients on fund formation and strategy, and launched a nonprofit accelerator for female entrepreneurs called Access Latina. She earned her MBA from Columbia Business School and her bachelor's from Harvard College. Bianca, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Team Alice, for having me.
So tell us just about what makes you the most excited about the startups that you work with, the work that you're doing now.
Sure. I think what makes me most excited every day to come to work at Republic is really our ability to use technology. We're a platform at the end of the day to open up access to capital to founders no matter where they are. So obviously today we have a very global group, which is super exciting, and folks from all across the US. And at Republic, we're a platform. So anyone with an internet connection can apply to raise capital from us. And we allow founders to raise capital from retail investors, so everyday investors, regardless of their accreditation status, as well as institutional investors through our VC arm called Republic Labs. And so the kinds of startups that we're seeing are incredibly diverse. They're from founders from all backgrounds, all industries. And you might think that in terms of equity crowdfunding, the top performing sort of industry would be consumer facing. And we definitely have had very successful companies in the CPG space, e-commerce, and those kinds of consumer brands raise with us. But we've also had companies in the B2B space raise with us and have seen a lot of success as it relates to getting lead gen for new clients, and just raising money from retail investors who are excited about their technologies that they're building out. And so we have a very diverse portfolio on our platform of companies raising now. Please feel free to go check them out at republic.co, and you can kind of see the exciting projects that we have raising.
Awesome. So for those who might just not have any idea what equity crowdfunding is versus rewards-based crowdfunding or anything else, could you just give us the 101 for the really basic, like what is it and why is it appealing?
Absolutely. So in terms of the 101 of equity crowdfunding, where we really sit is at the intersection of financing, sort of raising capital, and marketing. And so when people think about crowdfunding, they typically think about Kickstarter or those sorts of rewards-based platforms where founders are raising money and their backers get rewards in exchange, maybe a prototype of the product or a fun t-shirt, and they're excited to back that project. The difference between rewards-based crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding is that the folks that back you in Republic, your investors, are getting for their investment equity in your business, or via a security that we use called the CrowdSafe. So what it is people may be familiar with the SAFE, which is Simple Agreement for Future Equity. It's a security that's used for angels and early investors to invest in a startup. And it's a simple agreement where basically it says that that the investment will convert to equity when there is a priced round, when there is an institutional round. And so on Republic, it's the same instrument. We tailor it for the crowd, and investors into your what we call CrowdSafe will be getting a promise for future equity for a later date when the founder decides to convert those investors into equity. And so that's the really core difference. It's that when you're raising on a rewards-based kind of crowdfunding platform like a Kickstarter, your backers are getting a reward, they're getting a product, whereas on Republic, your backers are getting future equity in your business. And that's really the key difference. And then to go back to what I was alluding to before, with equity crowdfunding, we're at the intersection of both financing and marketing. So with the traditional sort of rewards-based crowdfunding, such as a Kickstarter, it's a great way to market your product, to generate pre-product sales, to build your brand. And so similarly with Republic, it's that same exact mechanism where you're sort of publicizing your investment campaign, you're gaining and garnering new interest from retail investors around the country and the world, and you're elevating your brand, your marketing, you're kind of essentially using similar digital channels that you would use for a Kickstarter, such as social, influencer marketing, PR. You're using those same channels to market your Republic campaign. So you're getting that same marketing boost, but also in addition, you're getting capital for your business. So it's kind of a 2-for-1, and that's the exciting opportunity with equity crowdfunding.
Yeah, I love that you talked about that intersection because, for me, marketing and branding has always been something that I've been really passionate about, especially as a community builder, right? Communities are really all about garnering people and mobilizing people around a similar cause and values. And that's really just marketing, right? Marketing is the ability to speak the language of the customer so that they take action and you can bring them value. So to that end, what would you say to an entrepreneur who says, well, I don't know the first thing about marketing. How do I get started?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And one of the things that we try to do at Republic is we've productized the legal and compliance aspects of launching your investment campaign. And in addition to productizing the legal and compliance, so our platform sort of serves as a place where you can go and execute your campaign. But in addition to that, we've come up with a playbook where where at this point, we've done around 100 campaigns in the last 2.5 years of operations. And we've come up with a marketing playbook where we can work with every single founder that comes on our platform to say, this is where you should be spending dollars on Facebook ads. We have custom templates for them to use as it relates to what messaging to use and when. We advise them on the legal and compliance of marketing the investment campaign, because we are SEC registered and FINRA licensed, and so there's compliance around that. So we've come up with a marketing playbook for every moment in the around basically 2-month-long campaign to say, this is when you should be leveraging some Facebook dollars. This is when you should be posting on Twitter. This is when you should be posting on LinkedIn as a founder and kind of spreading your personal message about your company, because that's going to be the most effective thing. And so we've come up with a marketing playbook as well, and work with every founder, as each founder is a little bit different. Some might want to sort of put their personal story forth and have that be the leading kind of marketing aspect of their campaign, or they might want to put their product forth first. And we advise them, depending on their goals, depending on how much they want to raise, and also what they're looking to get out of the campaign. So for example, a founder who's looking to acquire customers for the campaign, they're driving a very specific kind of customer acquisition strategy. That's probably going to be a lot more social heavy in terms of leveraging our digital marketing team and their know-how in terms of marketing a campaign and those sort of venues. And then a founder who perhaps is a B2B founder and is looking to gain sort of clients, we can customize that marketing strategy towards more a LinkedIn or spreading the word through email marketing among their network, Republic's network, to introduce them and put them in front of the right potential clients. So it varies by business, but we have established a playbook that has worked incredibly well. We have a very high success rate for our campaigns. It's in the high 90% of campaigns are successful on Republic, and so that's really where we come in terms of productizing legal compliance and marketing.
Got it. So when I think of equity crowdfunding, I really think about it being a democratized form of fundraising for entrepreneurs. And, you know, obviously we talk a lot about venture capital, and it's always in the news and all the headlines. And so what you've really reiterated is that, you know, with marketing, you know, LinkedIn, social, all the Facebook, Instagram channels, et cetera, that it really is something that is feasible for anyone. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there is something about democratization of access to capital in the sense that, you know, you don't have to know anyone in order to put some ad spend behind, you know, a Facebook ad and really build and sort of reach more of an audience and brand. I mean, we have all these amazing tools at our disposal now to augment our brand for relatively inexpensive, which is exciting. But I also think at Republic, it's democratizing in a couple different ways. You do not have to be accredited in order to invest on Republic. And so what does that mean? Most people probably know, but being an accredited investor in the US means that you have $1 million in net worth or have earned $250K in your household income for 2 consecutive years. And so that excludes sort of 90% for example, of the US in terms of everyday people that might want to back your company. And so that's really why Republic was created, to open up investing in the best startups in the country and the world to everyday people, regardless of their net worth. So you don't have to be a millionaire to invest. And so what does that mean for founders? Well, now you have an opportunity to allow your users, your community, your sort of your supporters, your friends and family, regardless of their accreditation status, to invest in you. So think about if Airbnb or Uber could have allowed their hosts or drivers early days to invest in their seed round. How exciting that would have been for them in terms of getting that sticky brand loyal user base right at the get-go. And so this is a new unique opportunity for founders that never before existed.
Got it. I mean, that's great. So what kind of results then have you seen in terms of the types of founders who are getting funded, and how is that different from what you're seeing in the venture landscape?
Sure, absolutely. So we took a look at our portfolio last year to really understand how this effort of kind of democratizing access to capital via technology, via a platform, how was that, what were the results in terms of our own portfolio, and what were we seeing? And we found that to date, around over 40% of capital on the platform had gone to a female founder. And that was versus for 2018, around 12% for the traditional venture capital industry. So that's, again, a company with a female founder. The number, and then when it came to underrepresented founders of color, we had around 25% of the capital on our platform had gone to a company with an underrepresented founder of color, as defined as Black or Latinx, and that's versus less than 1% for the traditional venture capital industry. And so while we still have a lot more work to do, we're not there yet by any means in terms of really closing those funding gaps. Those are early signs, and they're very encouraging to us that the sort of the platform play is working in terms of allowing founders from anywhere, no matter whether they're connected to traditional venture capital companies or not, they can raise capital from their community, their supporters, their friends and family, right where they are. So our founders tend to be more geographically diverse as well. In fact, last year we had an amazing female CEO, Amber McDonald from Enoughness, who raised on Republic, and she was the top earning female CEO in regulation crowdfunding for the year, and she's from Alaska. And so that was really exciting. She came to us cold. She applied to our platform. She didn't know us. She just was excited about the idea of raising her brand and raising capital via this new asset class. And it was a huge success. And so that's an example of, a female founder in Alaska can come to Republic and be successful in raising capital. She raised around $800,000 from over 1,000 backers. And so that really shows how this kind of platform process is really working in terms of democratizing access to capital.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that example as well, because it also shows that your geographical location is not a barrier, right, to getting the funding,
Exactly.
which I think is especially tough if you're not in a New York or a San Francisco or an LA or one of the big hubs.
Exactly.
So, as we think about the journey for an entrepreneur who's interested in crowdfunding, let's say I'm interested now and you've piqued my interest. What next?
Great question. So what I would say is it's important to think about to take a look at your business and your fundraising journey and say, why am I doing this? What is the strategy behind this? And so, as I mentioned, a couple of key use cases for equity crowdfunding are the following. One is user and customer acquisition. Two is on the B2B side, elevating your brand and your profile to secure those additional clients. Sort of lead gen is another use case. And the other use case in terms of the kind of business you might have is if you have a business that's a marketplace or a business that has multiple stakeholders. A lot of social enterprises actually fall in this category where they have multiple stakeholders. Maybe their end user or their end customer is not necessarily who they're interacting with every day, but they want to engage that end user and that end customer. And so for those businesses, enabling your stakeholders to invest in you can be very powerful. As I mentioned, like the example of Uber. So imagine if they could have had their drivers invest in them and create that brand loyalty and that stickiness in their marketplace. And so customer user acquisition, lead gen for B2B, and enabling stakeholders to invest for brand loyalty and for stickiness for marketplace businesses. Those are kind of the archetypes of companies that tend to be very successful on Republic. And so what I would say in that case is think about your business, think about the strategy. Obviously, you probably want to raise capital because you need capital to grow your business. But what else is the strategy in terms of doing an equity rate, a crowdfunding raise? And then I would say once you've thought through that, just get educated. So we can provide overviews on the timeline and the process of how that works. But I would say get educated on the process, and there's a ton of info on our website in terms of what the process is like, or you can email myself or Lisa to get more info. But we can provide those overviews exactly on the process. And then in terms of what we're looking for, we're really looking for a couple of things. Similar to kind of early stage investors, we're looking for those signs of traction in your business, because given we're a platform and we're kind of actually a double-sided marketplace ourselves, we're bringing the top quality startups and on behalf of investors that are investing. And so on behalf of those investors, we want to make sure that we're taking a look at the viability of all businesses that apply, and we're presenting our investors the best tech deals out there. And so we are looking for traction. So when you come and you apply to raise on Republic, a couple things are, thinking through, if you're a consumer business, making sure that you have a sort of decent sized user base already to begin with. Because if you don't have a strong enough user base to begin with when you come to Republic, you won't be able to sort of galvanize that community and into your raise. And so that's actually really important for your fundraise to have, if you're a consumer facing business, to have a strong user base. So it really varies from company, but in the thousands, tens of thousands of users is typically a recipe for success in terms of consumer, in terms of traction there. And then obviously we're also looking at engagement. So are those users or customers coming back month over month? What is your MAU, your monthly active user kind of rate? Are they coming back, to make those repeat purchases? Because that also again shows as an indicator of loyalty, that those customers are so excited about your product or your service that they will back your campaign. And then on the B2B side, we're looking for, sort of more revenue metrics, thinking through, annual revenue, what's your client pipeline? And that's again to make sure that we understand that this business is on track and a viable investment opportunity for our investors. So, and then of course we're looking at other things such as its strength of the team, the expertise. We're looking for things such as the product roadmap, the vision of the team on the roadmap of the product. And we're looking for, has this company raised capital before? You don't have to have raised before, but if you've had some backing as it relates to, even small angel checks are an indication that people are willing to back you. And that's another thing that we're looking for. And so we holistically will conduct due diligence on every company that raises with us, similar to what an early stage investor would look at. And the last thing we're really looking for is this last thing that we call crowdfundability. So to what extent is the crowd going to be excited about this idea, this product, or the founder story? And so that's a little bit more, we look for, a passionate founder, someone who's incredibly passionate and who we think will really convey their product or service in a way that will encourage and energize people that don't even know them to back them. And so that's the kind of the last thing we're looking for. So I would say right now you're kind of thinking, I'm piquing your interest. This is something that you might want to consider. Think about your business strategy. Why would you do this outside of course, raising capital? Get educated on the process. So again, just to shed a little bit of light on the process, typically it takes around a little over 2 months from start to finish to execute the campaign. And so within those couple months, it takes quite an amount of bandwidth from the founder and the founding team to execute the campaign. So, make sure you understand the process and make sure you know if this is the right timing for you. And then lastly, it's making sure you get your kind of data room in order and financials in order, and think through your traction and if you think now is the right time for you to apply to raise.
Got it. Thanks for that comprehensive review.
Sure.
So what is the actual acceptance rate in Republic of startups who do want to apply and do the crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a little hard to, we've had probably over 1,000 companies, maybe close to 2,000 companies at this point, apply to raise with us. over the last 2.5 years since we launched 3 years ago, and then we started hosting companies about 6 months in, so about 2.5 years. And we can't accept everyone, again, because we do have a diligence process, and we have an obligation to our investors to present the best deals and the most viable deals. And we've had around 100 companies raise with us. But I would say that it's not to discourage you, because I think there have been other cases where companies come, they apply, and maybe they don't move forward with us because they are not ready at that point. Maybe it's a bandwidth constraint, or maybe they're focusing on an institutional round and they'll come back to us. So our acceptance rate tends to be around 5% or so. But I think we have also had multiple examples of companies that have applied, weren't quite ready at that time, reapplied, and launched a very successful campaign. So I would say we have built an ecosystem of education, content, and events to kind of serve the communities that we're in beyond just running a campaign with us. So there are many ways to engage with Republic and to stay in touch in the event that now's not the right time.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that just like any other sort of fundraise, right? At the end of the day, you still are fundraising from investors, even if they're not necessarily all accredited venture investors. What's a good amount to raise or a target to raise on Republic or any equity crowdfunding site?
That's a great question. Well, I'll tell you what the max you can raise is by regulation. So the max you can raise is $1,070,000 annually. Again, that's a number that is a cap that the SEC has given the entire industry. And so we have seen founders raise up to $1,070,000, but other founders are more thinking this is going to be, so they're raising potentially $500K to $2 million, let's say, of a seed round or a pre-seed round. And they want to allocate out of that round, $250K to their user base or their community, because as I mentioned before, it's a strategic opportunity for them to engage those users, engage those customers, but they're also simultaneously raising from institutional VCs. And so doing an equity crowdfunding raise does not preclude you from raising an institutional round with raising other securities simultaneously. So I think some founders come and say, you know what, I want to raise the full $1 million with Republic because I for whatever reason they don't want to go the VC route. Maybe there are things you have to think through, such as giving up control, giving up more equity, things like that. But I think typically the sweet spot is probably between $250K and $500K in terms of a strategic raise on Republic, and then it's kind of all the way up to that $1 million cap. And to give you a sense of kind of the valuations that we're seeing on average on Republic, it's typically $5 to $7 million in valuation. So it's around that kind of pre-seed round. And so again, that if you're thinking of how much is raised in that round, it's roughly kind of, those are the kind of the stage that we actually work with. We've worked with companies all the way up through beyond Series A as well, but the bulk of it is kind of seed and pre-seed. Great.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. So what other things do you think people should know or entrepreneurs should know when it comes to considering whether this is the right channel for them? And to all the participants, whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box and we will get to them in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. I think a couple things to know is this is maybe just to demystify a couple of things that we typically the questions we typically get from founders. So founders come to us who are considering this and they say, well, I'm a little bit nervous that I'll have, I see that kind of hundreds of investors have invested in campaigns on Republic. And I'm a little nervous that I'll have 100 line items on my cap table with every single Republic investor that comes into my campaign. Well, that's not the case. That's one of the biggest kind of concerns we get from founders. And what we do is we explain to them that with the Republic crowd safe, it rolls all the investors in your Republic equity crowdfunding campaign will roll up into one line item on your cap table. And so if you have 100 investors, 300 investors, you won't have 300 line items. It'll be one line item on your cap table that says they're a public crowd safe. And that's a key thing to know as it relates to raising with us. Because a lot of founders say they're concerned that if they go on to raise an institutional round after they raise with Republic, whether it's a seed or Series A or beyond, they're concerned about sort of how will my cap table look to those future institutional investors. So to demystify that, it's one line item in your cap table. The other thing that founders will get a little concerned about or wonder about is, okay, I now have 300 new investors via their Republic campaign, or 1,000 new investors. Am I going to get 1,000 requests for information from all these investors? And the reality is that with the Republic Crowd Safe, key features are there are no voting or information rights. But however, we think it's really important for founders who have raised with us to update their Republic investors just like they would update any of their investors along their journey, because these are actually now brand ambassadors, supercharged users, or just insanely loyal evangelists, and they can be an asset to you and your business along your journey. So if you wanted to conduct, a survey of your users, or if you wanted to get product feedback, if you wanted to engage one of your investors who knows a connection on LinkedIn, a mutual connection on LinkedIn of a client that you're trying to get to, you can use these investors as to add value to your business along the way. So it's very important that you're updating those investors on a regular cadence, maybe once a quarter or twice a year, whatever it is you decide is appropriate. And but the only actual obligation you have to update those investors is once at the close of your campaign is sort of one compliance sort of requirement is to do one update after your campaign. And so beyond that, it's really at your discretion. So no, you won't be asked, 1,000 times for information about your business, but we do encourage it. And then the other thing to note is with the Republic Crowd Safe, another feature of it is that I alluded to this in the beginning, but just to kind of dial down on it, it's the conversion to equity of those investors in your company and in your crowd safe is extendable to the next round. So what does that mean? Well, traditionally, when you raise with angels via a safe or a convertible note, they will convert to equity at the next priced round when you have gone through an institutional investment round and a venture capital firm assigns a valuation to your business. But with Republic or with our crowd safe, one feature is that the conversion to equity is extendable. So you can extend the conversion of those investors to equity to the next priced round and continue thereafter until there is a liquidity event, such as an IPO or an acquisition, 5 to 7 years from now. Hopefully when your business goes all the way to the, to complete a liquidity event. And so that's important because, again, when you're communicating, if you're thinking of doing this and you want to then raise an institutional round, you can communicate to your future institutional investors that, again, I won't have, line items in terms of equity on my cap table. I can extend the conversion into a liquidity event. And on the investor side of things, because obviously we like to be very investor friendly, those early investors will have similar opportunities to, again, a traditional angel investor, where with the safe, there is a valuation cap and a valuation and a discount at which they will convert to equity in the future. So that helps to prevent them from being too diluted since they're very early on, and to give them some preference in terms of conversion in the future. And so the valuation cap and discount is traditional of the industry, and our investors get that. So again, traditionally the valuation caps, as I alluded to, are around 5 to 7 million for companies that raise with us, which is traditional for pre-seed, and then the discounts around 20% for those investors. So those are all the features of the crowd safe, and those are kind of some of the myths I like to debunk when I kind of present the opportunity. I'm trying to think of anything else. Do you have any questions on that, or is that clear, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah, because I definitely think it was good that you addressed the concern around having the hundreds of investors on your cap table, because that's definitely you know, it would be a headache if you did have to constantly respond to that and not actually focus on building your business.
Exactly. So again, it should be an exciting asset to have this new supercharged user base, but not a burden. And yeah, I think it's a super interesting opportunity that really, you know, it didn't exist before. Really, 2016 when this regulation was passed. And so, again, I think when I think to maybe a case study of well, you know, maybe to put some color around this and some concrete, you know, sort of stories around it. We had a founder come to us and sort of consider this opportunity a couple years ago, 5 years ago, who's founder and CEO of Pack. She's a really awesome, brilliant woman who had an idea to essentially build a product that can be used and distributed to college students and university students around the country. It was an on-demand app that allowed students to get basic products from jetpack holders around campus on demand, so toothbrushes or deodorant. And so Fatima came to us after she had gone to all the investors on Sand Hill Road and said, hey, I'm thinking of, you know, a lot of investors are interested in my idea, but they're not sure if this is really something that the market will want. They don't know if there's going to be demand for this. And so she said, but I have this really engaged user base of students, and they're excited about the product. So she ended up raising from that user base. She raised around $300,000 from around 800 investors, the bulk of which were students. And she ended up going back to those same investors on Sand Hill Road and closing out the rest of her round. She then raised $750K from those same exact investors who didn't kind of understand the concept or even think it was a really a product that would have any demand before that campaign, because those investors saw that the bulk of her Republic investors were students. And so obviously there was a data point there in terms of a market validator to say, oh, actually this product, there is demand for this. She received over 800 backers from mostly students, and most of those were new actually users that showed that this product, actually there was demand for the product. And so that's an exciting, I think, opportunity to, or rather use case to say, you can actually use their public campaign to demonstrate product market fit to traditional investors and to show that traction. And so it can be a really awesome growth hack and also fundraising hack for founders.
That's great. That's a really cool use case to think of it that way. So there's a question from an attendee who's asking, I'm considering crowdfunding because I'm scared to give up too much equity or going into debt. I haven't heard of equity crowdfunding before now. What are the benefits of equity crowdfunding versus traditional crowdfunding? So we've talked a bit about that, but maybe we can just give like a brief few bullet points of, you know, equity versus venture.
That's a great, I think it's a great question. So I think what this founder is asking is kind of thinking through, okay, kind of Kickstarter rewards piece versus equity crowdfunding versus traditional venture capital. And when I think about that kind of decision process, we actually have had founders that have done very successful Kickstarter campaigns and then gone on to raise an equity crowdfunding campaign with us. And we actually like founders who have done that, because I think where the rewards based kind of Kickstarter raising for, you know, just purely cash comes in, where I think it's really a great opportunity is in really establishing those early kind of, first of all, customer base, but also testing out the market to see, is there demand for this product? And so that Kickstarter campaign, if it's successful, can be a really great data point to show that there is demand for this product and to get those pre-sales. When it comes to equity crowdfunding, I think you at that point you would probably have either gone through the Kickstarter process or not. But the idea, the sense is that process of doing a traditional crowdfunding campaign is more to test out the product. When it comes to doing equity, the product needs to have more traction. It needs to be kind of at the next phase of growth. because that's just something that our diligence team will kind of look for. Again, as I mentioned, we need to see that, there's a certain monthly revenue, annual revenue, customers that are repeating. There needs to be more momentum in the business versus kind of the Kickstarter. So I would say the Kickstarter is more of a testing phase, testing that product market fit. And the equity crowdfunding campaign is more of actually there is product market fit and I want to raise capital to grow and to accelerate that growth. And then I would say equity crowdfunding versus the institutional round, that founder's right on point. I think it's a matter of, you can see them interchangeably because again, when you're raising with Republic, it's between, let's say 500K to $1 million of your pre-seed round, say. And you can look at that as you know what, this is going to be my pre-seed round. Or you can say, well, I do want to raise capital and open up access to investing in my company to my users. But I also see value in simultaneously raising capital from institutions. Because the key difference is with institutional investors, you're going to get that custom advice and network of those investors that's just, you won't get from the crowd. So from the crowd, you're going to get marketing, user growth, product testing, and user feedback. From the institutional investor, you're going to get I think a deeper connection to whatever that institutional investor specializes in. So obviously when you're thinking about taking on institutional capital from a seed fund or a Series A or beyond, it's a strategic fit. And so you need to think through what investors are you really, partnering with? So it's a very important decision. It's a partnership. And so you might say to yourself, you know what, and you're giving up more equity at the institutional level. So you might say, I don't want to give up equity, but also I'm not ready for that partnership. I want to kind of be more heads down and bootstrap this company, but I do want to raise capital for my users and give out equity to my users for that strategic product advice or user acquisition. So they're different. It's kind of different decisions that you have to make, but I would say the real distinction between a rewards-based and equity is it's earlier. Rewards is earlier, that is. Equity is kind of for more companies with more traction that are looking to grow and they have product market fit. And then again, between equity and institutional, it's really a calculation of, do I want to bring on a partner in my business? Am I ready for that? To give out a board seat, to give out more equity, to give out voting and sort of power of my business, versus do I just want to get capital and raise from my user base, or do I want to do both? So you kind of can have multiple options.
Great. Yeah, I think that I hope that was clear for the attendee. And so Naveed wants to know, what distinguishes Republic from other equity crowdfunding platforms? What are your tips for choosing the platform that fits our company the best? And I think Naveed, someone had written they're a CPG company, but if you want to write in the box what kind of company you have, that could be helpful. But yeah, well, why don't we start with what distinguishes Republic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think what really distinguishes Republic is we have, in our opinion, one of the strongest products out there in terms of regulation crowdfunding and our portal and our product. We have had we spun out of AngelList 3 years ago, and AngelList kind of invented this space of investing online. And from that legacy of AngelList, our founder and CEO, Ken Wen, was the general counsel of AngelList. And he started building Republic with two key things: the top engineers out there from the AngelList family, and the top lawyers and securities attorneys who could really understand how to productize this very complicated process. And as I mentioned, Ken, our CEO himself, is a former securities attorney. And so I think our key competitive advantages versus our competitors in the landscape is really, we are building an ecosystem that has a legacy of the best engineers, top securities attorneys, and also beyond our regulation crowdfunding offering, we also have, as I mentioned, an institutional investor arm called Republic Labs, where Series A founders we run syndicates on behalf of Series A founders who are playing around. We've run syndicates for founders, typically around Series A, but up from everywhere from 250K to 5 million. And so we have, and then as I mentioned also, as you mentioned, Lisa, in the beginning, we've now acquired the top female founder events and community business, really in the country, SheWorx, maybe even in the world. Well, we like to think SheWorx. And so we have a very unique focus on making sure we have a pipeline of female founders, because those tend to be top performing businesses. And so I think with Republic, we're really an ecosystem, and we aim to help founders on every stage of their journey: content and education, equity crowdfunding via, raising via the crowd and retail investor, institutional capital. And so we treat our alums like family. Every founder we work with has a tailored and special experience, and we pride ourselves on that. But it really comes down to our product and our team's ability to execute this complicated process at the highest level.
Awesome. Well, I think this would also be a really good time to talk about what SheWorx and Republic, or now as one umbrella, are doing to help female entrepreneurs.
Definitely. So as you all may have seen, Republic recently announced our acquisition of SheWorx. Lisa, our esteemed moderator, is founder of SheWorx and has built an incredible, I think, ecosystem of female founders across the country and the world. And so first and foremost, the reason why we acquired SheWorx was because we were, again, looking to double down on building and cultivating a pipeline of the best female founders out there to, first of all, support them and engage them, but also if and when they were ready, sort of take them into our ecosystem and along the fundraising, and be with them along their fundraising journey from early days to regulation crowdfunding to later stage Republic Labs and beyond. And so what our intention is with SheWorx is to continue educating and cultivating great opportunities for female founders to meet with top investors and top entrepreneurs to learn, demystify the fundraising process, get educated, get the tools they need to grow their business, and then make a decision from there. And we're there to support that community. And so I'll be leading that community at Republic, which is very exciting. We just had our first event yesterday in San Francisco with Stephanie Palmieri, who is a partner at Uncle Capital, one of the preeminent seed funds in Silicon Valley, and the founding team of All Raise. And we are looking to continue doing this kind of education all along the way. We also have an event coming up in New York with Meredith Finn, who's a partner at March Capital, which is a Series A fund based in LA and New York. And so we have a lot more things planned. So the other thing we have planned, which I don't know if Lisa wanted to kick off and talk about, our Republic SheWorx crowdfunding challenge.
Yeah, so a big part of the narrative where SheWorx had really been trying to bring more women into was around, what does the future of funding look like? And as we thought more about that, and we're looking at the landscape and how dismal it was for women to get venture funding, 2.2%, we really started looking at equity crowdfunding as one of these beacons of what the future of funding could look like. And so with the merging of SheWorx and Republic, we decided that a great way to kick it off would be with the SheWorx Equity Crowdfunding Challenge. And so as Bianca mentioned earlier, there is a fee that is associated with getting the onboarding, getting all of this comprehensive help when it comes to the legal, the marketing, the compliance, all of that stuff, which doing it on your own would be so difficult. And that's why the fee basically goes to the time that the Republic team puts into it. And with the Equity Crowdfunding Challenge, the SheWorx Equity Crowdfunding Challenge that's powered by Republic, we have a challenge up, and if you go to sheworx.com/republic, I believe, you'll be able to find the Equity Crowdfunding Challenge, and we'll be selecting a few winners. So if you are interested in crowdfunding, if you have any curiosity and you think that your company could benefit from it, you can submit the information about yourself and the company, and we'll be picking the winners. We will be taking care of all of the costs of setting up your crowdfunding campaign and setting you up for success. So really for you, it just becomes an educational journey for you to learn how to set up a successful fundraising campaign and then successfully launch it with the support of the SheWorx and Republic team. So again, if you're interested in that, you can go to sheworx.com/republic, and we will be accepting applications through, what was the date? August. Yes. Yeah. So mid-August.
Exactly.
And yeah, so once you've put in your information, we'll be announcing that soon. And then, you know, you could be very well on your way in terms of your first fundraise.
Absolutely.
Cool. So it seems like, you know, we're kind of at the hour mark, but we have one last question that I'm just going to take, and this is from another attendee, and it says, does equity crowdfunding work when investing into a franchise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have had, to answer the question, no, but what I would say is we have had brick and mortar companies raise with us. So we had a restaurant chain who was expanding locations down in LA. It was a social enterprise called Farm to Table. They, Every Table. They actually raised with Republic, and they used the capital to expand their locations of their restaurant chain. And so I think when it comes to a franchise model, that wouldn't necessarily work, because we ultimately tend to focus on founders who own and operate their own business and who are looking to raise that growth capital. But what I would say is definitely if you have a brick and mortar business that you want to expand quickly, that's making a lot of money, and you want to involve your community in that, we also have the opportunity to raise debt on Republic. We've actually done not just equity but debt raises, and that's also something that I didn't actually get into because there's a lot to cover on the equity side. But we have had companies that perhaps are either more traditional kind of brick and mortar or e-commerce, or they just didn't want to raise equity, raise debt with us. And so that's something that we can accommodate as well. And then of course, again, something that we didn't touch upon as much, we also have an opportunity for blockchain projects who are looking to do an initial coin offering to raise the seed capital for that initial coin offering on Republic. It's called a token DPA. And again, it's a kind of a version of a debt instrument as well. And so we've had several blockchain projects do that, and actually had a blockchain project who went on to then do an ICO and issue coins back to our Republic investors. So we can accommodate different kinds of businesses for sure, but franchise is not one, because we tend to focus on businesses that are started by founders scratch and kind of entrepreneurship in that sense. But maybe something to think about. So I'm always open to hearing more ideas about that.
Awesome. Great. Well, I think that this was a really good overview of equity crowdfunding in general, and just the advantages, and differences with the traditional, venture route. And I hope that this was really educational for all of the attendees. Thank you for your questions, and thank you, Bianca, for helping us learn through this entire journey. And I will now turn it to Alice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bianca and Lisa, for a really informative discussion. I feel like I learned so much. If anyone here has more questions about equity crowdfunding, please visit the WomanMade community on helloalice.com, and we will field those to Lisa and Bianca. I've posted the link in the chat over there, so you can click that. And we will be hosting our next office hours with Lisa in 2 more weeks. So we'll have that posted there as well, so you can sign up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra and Lisa, for having me.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining.